I'm going to introduce you to Todd McMullen, who is our board chair. He has been on our board since 2017. He's served as treasurer, chair. Todd's paying job is he is partner and vice chairman with Moore Colson CPA firm. And I got to tell you, we are so blessed to have him in this role. Todd is one of these incredibly intentional people who knows exactly who he wants to be and what he wants to be known for and remembered for. And that is how he lives his life, both with his family, with his work, and with those causes he supports, which include serving on the board of the Atlanta Community Food Bank. Todd, thank you for all that you do. And I will leave it to you to talk about our investment transition.
Thanks, Sherry. Gee, what an introduction. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And look, as you hear about all the things that the foundation has been involved with in 2020, I have to thank the team. I have to thank Sherry, Barbara, Kat, and Patty, and for all that they've done. It's been a difficult year, and they've really risen to the occasion. So thank you very much. Barbara mentioned earlier, that we've doubled in size in the last few years here. And in any time a business or an organization grows, you have to kind of step back and take a look at the organization and make a determination about, well, how is that organization flexing with that growth? You can see with the staffing changes and structural changes that we addressed, but one of those items was to take a look at our investment management. And look, we had an excellent investment manager and advisor at that time, and we just really wanted to make sure that on a go-forward basis, we had the right fit for our vision and mission of the foundation. So we executed a search, and we invited a couple of nationally known and recognized firms, as well as a few local firms. And I just want to stop and recognize our investment committee. So our investment committee is comprised of a number of very seasoned business executives and managers, and led by Frank Howard, who's a retired executive from Genuine Parts. And they did a fantastic job with look, and this was during COVID. So normally you'd love to sit down across the table and meet with these advisors. Everything was done through Zoom. But I got to tell you, the advisors, the firms that we brought in the investment committee did a fantastic job. High quality teams across the board. And so with that process, and I sat in on those meetings, was thoroughly impressed with all the advisors, and the investment committee came back with the recommendation that the board approved to bring in SignatureFD as our investment managers. And so SignatureFD, for those who aren't familiar with them, is an Atlanta-based headquartered investment management advisory firm. They've been around for almost 25 years. They have about 90 folks, a ton of professionals in that group, over 4.5 billion of assets under management, over 1,300 clients, of which about 250 or more are Cobb County residents. So they're very, very familiar with Cobb County. One of the things that we noticed as a group that their process, investment process and selection process is unparalleled. But one of the things we noted is that, and this is unique for a local firm versus the national or international advisors, is that they had a generosity or philanthropy group that aligned with their involvement with their client base. And that was very intriguing to us. And we felt that it aligned extremely well with the foundation. And so, the foundation is made up of a lot of fund holders. And so that investment advisor is very important to the growth of the foundation. So we felt that it was important to introduce SignatureFD to our fund holders and stakeholders. And so today we have a few of the leaders from SignatureFD joining us today. The person you'll be hearing from first is David Fisher. And David Fisher is a co-founder of SignatureFD. I've got a bio here, so let me touch on a few things that he would be too humble to cover. But David is a co-founder and chief wealth officer of SignatureFD. He leads the firm's integrated wealth management team and is a member of the firm's senior leadership team and board of directors. In his role, David sets the long-term vision, strategy, and operational plans for SignatureFD's wealth management team. He was the firm's previous chief investment officer for nearly 20 years. And as a recognized expert in his field, and David is often a speaker at conferences and seminars. He's been quoted numerous times in the AJC, Financial Advisory Management and Practical Accountant. He's also been named the Atlanta Magazine's 5-star Best in Client Satisfaction Wealth Managers list, and at an earlier stage in his career was named by Cobb Life as one of the Cobb County's top 40 under 40. David holds a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration from Culverhouse School of Accounting at the University of Alabama. And on a community note, David has been involved heavily as a Scoutmaster with the Boy Scouts, heavily involved with the Marietta First United Methodist Church, and actually was a board member of the foundation and the previous chair some 6-7 years ago. David's a member of the CFA Institute and is the CFP board member. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you David Fisher.
Todd and Sherry, thank you so much for doing that. That was a very kind introduction. And let me pull up a slide that I would like to go over a couple of pieces of information about our firm. All right, let me get to the beginning here. Yeah, thank you so much. And on behalf of my whole team, I just wanted to say that we're super excited about this relationship. And as Todd was reflecting, I have had a long involvement with CCF. And so it's personally rewarding to see the work that's happened. And I'd like to really call attention to the board and the work that you all have done. And Sherry, you've done a tremendous job in your time leading the organization, and especially as you're talking about 2020 and the need to not only continue with your regular business, but pivot to the needs of the community as the year has been very different than expected. SignatureFD was launched 23 years ago, as Todd was saying. We came out of a CPA firm here in town, Frazier and Dieter. And so our roots come out of that environment. And Frazier and Dieter is the 75th largest CPA firm in the country. And they constantly rank in the top 10 fastest growing in that grouping of the top 100. From day one, our organization was focused really on two critical things: complete customer focus and being fully transparent wealth management firm that helps our clients coordinate and integrate all aspects of their financial plan. So as you can see from this slide, I won't go over in too much detail because I think most of this was covered by Todd, and I appreciate that. I will reiterate the fact that we do have a significant number of our clients that are residents and or have businesses in Cobb County. And then on our team.
Excuse me, David, could you please reshare your screen, please?
Did it drop off? Okay.
Yeah, it just dropped off. Thank you so much. And if you need help, we can also share.
No, I'll figure it out. We use Teams here in our organization, and so we're a little bit.
So many different technologies.
I think when I changed the screen, I dropped it. So just to reiterate the key points here, we do have a lot of clients that are active in the Cobb community. And then importantly from our firm, myself, as Todd mentioned, but also our CEO, Heather Fordner, is a resident of Cobb County. And Wade Hill, who's the partner managing this relationship, is a member of Cobb County, and he'll be on here in just a minute. And then Todd alluded to the generosity team in our organization, which I will touch on in just a minute. This is, I could talk all day about our organization. I don't want to do that here. But this is some of the community and industry recognition that our firm has gotten just over the last year or so. I'll highlight the ones on the right hand of this screen because these are the ones that we're the most proud of, and they relate to our team and the extraordinary culture that we've worked so hard to build at SignatureFD. One of the things that we believe is very unique about our organization is a focus on really strong core values and a great organization that's attractive to the future leaders of the industry. And we believe that's the most important thing to create a stable and sustainable wealth management firm. And then lastly, I wanted to introduce just briefly kind of the concepts that Todd alluded to that are somewhat unique to our organization. And we think were instrumental in helping this relationship. Our firm has a idea of what we call net worthwhile. And it's really this overlapping space that you can see on this chart of where individuals' wealth and where their worth connects. And this really did, I believe, resonate with the Cobb Community Foundation and the board and the investment committee as a differentiator. And ultimately, our organization, focuses on this from a client perspective. And what we believe is that net worthwhile inspires our clients to think about their wealth in new ways and really be able to activate that wealth and do things that they think are important that maybe without the confidence of a financial plan that they would otherwise not be able to handle. And so this is really the essence of what we do. It ties into one of our core values, which is gratitude. And as you can see, a big part of this is the ability to use your wealth to support the organizations, the people, the family members. But in this case, working with the Community Foundation, obviously the areas of the community that are in need. And we can just really help provide some additional information and resources to CCF. So we're so excited about that. And I'm really personally very proud that we're able to continue this relationship. So let me go ahead now and introduce, because I know we do want to talk a little bit about the way the assets are being managed and the strategy that we utilize as an organization. And so I'll hand it over to Wade Hill. Wade is a Georgia native, graduated from UGA with a degree in financial planning, lives in Marietta with his wife, Kate, and their 2 children. He's a chartered financial analyst and a certified financial planner. That just means that he can handle all aspects of financial issues for clients, which is fantastic. And he's got more than a decade of experience in the industry. Since he joined our firm 7 years ago, he's been an active member of our investment team. And also in his primary role is to serve as a lead advisor working with client families of the organization. So Wade, I'll go ahead and drop my screen and then you can pull up a few things that you've got to talk about the way that we manage the portfolio and what our thoughts are going forward. So Wade, I'll hand it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, David. Thanks, the donor fund holders. Thanks, Sherry and Todd, for introducing us. We're glad to be here. This process started about 6 months ago, right as we were kind of in the middle of COVID, and we were meeting with the investment committee and the board and going through this RFP process. As David mentioned, I am a Cobb County resident. My wife and I live right off the square in Marietta. I am a CFA charter holder and certified financial planner. Prior to being a partner and advisor, I did work on as a senior member of our investment team, working very closely with David and our team to build out our portfolios. Prior to SignatureFD, I worked at a multifamily office here in town, working with a number of ultra affluent families and working through generational wealth planning and transfer. So I'm very familiar with the charitable organization side and foundation side of this. I'll share my screen. So when we started down this RFP process with Cobb Community Foundation, the goal was we were hired to manage the 4 existing buckets that have been managed this whole time, but to really put the SignatureFD portfolio process and philosophy overlay to those 4 buckets. What we found was that the 4 buckets aligned very closely with the portfolios that we've run for 23 years in-house. And so it was a easy transition for us to be able to meet with the investment committee, understand the goals and the process that they wanted laid out. The investment policy statements, the exact same investment policy statement that we've had, for Cobb Community Foundation. We just simply took over management and started working through what we do and how we manage portfolios moving forward. Our portfolio process is really laid out in 4 buckets. We have strategic asset allocation, manager selection, tactical portfolio shifts, and then ongoing portfolio management. The strategic asset allocation is really the long-term risk. What's the allocation that we're going to manage to? What's the goals long-term? And that's really set out with the 4 buckets. So you have the option to choose an aggressive, a moderate, a conservative, or a cash. And we manage that, using those long-term goals for each bucket. Manager selection looks at how are we going to invest? What vehicles are we going to use? Are we going to use individual stocks or individual bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, alternative investments, and private? For the Cobb Community Foundation, we continued a ETF index approach to manage the allocations and the risks that we want for each of those buckets. The tactical portfolio shifts, I think that's kind of our bread and butter of where's the overweights, where's the underweights, what are we looking for, what's the opportunities that we see in the markets, but also what's the risk, what things can we not control that we want to take down, right? Through COVID, obviously, there was a lot of uncertainty in the markets, and so we were actively making changes, typically 3 to 5 per year on the portfolio based off what we see on a forward-looking, more short-term in nature. And then the portfolio management piece. How are we ongoing managing the portfolio? A lot of that has to do with taxes and tax loss harvesting on the individual side. Luckily, we don't have to deal with taxes on the foundation side. But looking at rebalancing, when do portfolios start to get outside of bounds that we've set for long-term targets, and bringing those back to those strategic asset allocations going forward? From a research perspective, we have a 12-person in-house investment team. And as David showed earlier, we have 11 CFA charter holders. So we have a very deep bench from an investment perspective. In addition to the research that we do in-house, we subscribe to a handful of third-party industry-leading research providers that we assimilate all the data and create kind of our house view of what we think of the market now and looking forward. In addition to those research providers, we also have an in-house proprietary model that's a very indicator-based model. A lot of indicators flow up into 3 main buckets. We have a macro monetary bucket, a trend bucket, and a fundamental bucket. If you look at the macro monetary bucket, that looks at interest rates. Are interest rates going higher, or are they coming lower? Global monetary policy. Is it typically accommodative? Are they easing, or are they tightening? It looks at bond yields and credit conditions in the bond market. Right now, that's an overweight for us in that indicator model. We have a trend bucket, which is really the technical analysis behind a lot of the research we're doing. What's the relative strength of the market? What's the participation rate? So which means, is the market moving up because of a few select stocks, or is it broad based and where there's a lot of participation underneath, which tends to be pro growth? Right now, obviously, off of the off the rebound of the last couple of quarters, the technical perspective also looks positive. One of the things that we're watching very closely is the fundamental bucket. A couple of weeks back, the fundamental bucket went from overweight to underweight, which really looks at valuations. What's the current price of the market? Is it overvalued? Is it undervalued? And while no one bucket itself is helping move the decisions we're making, timing's very tough. And when you're a long-term investors, we want to use indicators and real-time data to help determine where we're going to move the portfolio to achieve those long-term goals. As we go into 2021, there's a lot of things we're watching. And again, back to, we really focus on long-term trends and long-term indicators to help our clients achieve their goals. However, 2020 has been a very politically driven year. There's going to be a lot of policy changes that may or may not happen as we go into 2021. So it's important to look at those to figure out what's going to happen in the near term. What we saw back in March of this year when the market bottom was fiscal stimulus. The stimulus package helped the market get back to positive. It was a V-shaped recovery. It happened a lot quicker than most people would have thought. However, going forward, Senate and presidential gridlock is likely to lead to more muted stimulus. It's we've seen that so far of these past couple of weeks where we haven't been able to get a stimulus bill across. That's a risk as we head into 2021. I do think we'll eventually get some sort of stimulus, but it'll likely be much less than what we saw back earlier this year. Additionally, one risk as we head into 2021 is earnings. Off the bad earnings of Q1 and Q2, the economy has started to shift, but that's put forward really lofty expectations for 2021. So we're watching to see, can companies continue to grow through this, semi-lockdown phase? I think one thing that people were scared of for 2021 was taxes. Is there going to be a lot of tax changes on both corporate and personal? I think given the gridlock scenario between the president and the Senate, we think it's unlikely that you'll see mass changes to taxes. One thing that we continue to see is low rates across the market. The Federal Reserve has said that they're going to keep rates very low for the foreseeable future. That tends to be very positive for the market on a 12-month forward-looking basis. And then lastly, we remain overweight large cap US. We've remained, that's been a tactical overweight for us for the past couple of years. A lot of indicators are starting to show things that have been suppressed. Cyclicals, international small caps are starting to do better. That's something that we're watching. We've yet to make a move, towards that, but that's something that we will be watching as we head into 2021. Lastly is communication. We do a ton of communication, and we pride ourselves with really over communicating to our clients. This communication is going to the investment committee. I talk very frequently with the board and the investment committee and Sherry on what we're doing from a portfolio perspective. We have a weekly piece and a monthly webinar and a quarterly market newsletter. In addition to those three core pieces, we do event-driven blogs and white papers and memos. Think around like presidential election, we were putting out different one-pagers and things like that to keep clients up to date with what we're doing. Tactical changes. So back in April, when we increased equity exposure across the board to get portfolios back in line, we did a one-time memo to clients. And then some things are more planning oriented. So like the post-election tax and estate planning blog that we did. There's going to be a lot of year-end charitable things and planning that we can do ahead of 2021. And so, I want you to lean on Cobb Community Foundation and the things they're doing before year end to be able to make those decisions. I will say one thing. So Cobb Community Foundation will be putting out a survey for the donor fund holders. If you want access to any of these investment communications on an ongoing basis, you will be able to opt in or opt out of those. But again, all of this will be going to the investment committee, and we stay in close touch with Sherry and her team.